So we've actually remade a majority of the Indigo v1 scripts already into Aiken just for testing purposes. The protocol isn't currently using them, because they've yet to be audited, and we're still working on things and building them towards v2. But from what I understand, from what the dev team has shared with me, is the main features of Aiken is going to be improved performance. And I guess it's opinionated whether or not it'll make building easier. But from what I understand, that for certain things, for Indigo's sake at least, it will make building some features of the protocol easier. And then it'll also improve the readability.
What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome back to Dapp Central. My name is Fareed, sitting across from Dan, who's going to be the marketing lead from Indigo Labs, to talk a little bit about what Indigo is building, as well as what they've already brought over into Cardano. Now, before we jump into today's video, I want to give Dan a minute to introduce himself and what he's actually doing for Indigo Labs.
Yeah, so my name's Daniel Short. I've been with Indigo Labs now for a little bit over 2 years. So I was actually part of the team when we initially released the protocol back in November of 2022. So I'm the marketing lead there, so that all that means is, if you're a member of our Discord, for instance, you'll probably see me putting out some of the announcements for updates for, governance votes or, new features being added to the protocol, or, leading some of the community calls that we have about once every 2 months or so. And then I also, sometimes you'll see me, managing the Twitter, putting out a lot of the announcements and stuff there. So I guess you could sum up my job being is really focusing on what the sentiment is of the community, and, reporting back to the team and telling them how we can accommodate, the different feelings and, features that the community wants, and then seeing how they respond to those features once we add them.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. Now, as I understand it, with respect to Indigo, there has been some recent partnerships that you guys have struck, and you guys have also made some pretty big announcements with respect to the web app v2 that was just released. Now, I want to jump into both of those things, but the first thing I want to jump into is going to be a partnership or an adoption of Aiken. Now, Aiken is going to be an abstraction of low-level Plutus code, basically simplifying smart contract development on Cardano. Do you mind maybe touching on why you guys have picked Aiken and some of the potential benefits that we could see when it comes to Indigo when you guys are going to be using or integrating Aiken?
Yeah, absolutely. So it should be understood here that I am, I'm the marketing lead, so I'm not the dev brain behind the project in any way. But I have had a few conversations with our CTO, Cody, and then also some of the dev team as well. So we've actually remade a majority of the Indigo v1 scripts already into Aiken just for testing purposes. The protocol isn't currently using them, because they've yet to be audited, and we're still working on things and building them towards v2. But from what I understand, from what the dev team has shared with me, is the main features of Aiken is going to be improved performance. And I guess it's opinionated whether or not it'll make building easier. But from what I understand, that for certain things, for Indigo's sake at least, it will make building some features of the protocol easier. And then it'll also improve the readability. So people, because we are open source, people will be able to go in there and have a little bit easier of a time reading and understanding the code, and searching for improvements that can be made or optimizations to make the protocol even more efficient, right? Because again, Indigo is just a very community central type of initiative. But yeah, we're really excited for Aiken. It's been great, talking to Lucas here from Aiken and some of the other people that are involved over there. Indigo, we have actually submitted some things on GitHub, improvements that we think could have been made, so we've been involved there on the community front as well. But yeah, all around, we're just really excited because we think that it will unlock a decent amount of potential for us, at least on the efficiency side, heading into our development sprint for V2.
So if I get it in a recap, readability, throughput, and potential scalability benefits, which I think all contribute to faster adoption of already one of the biggest asset or synthetic asset protocols on Cardano. So I think that's really huge. We're also seeing a lot of other projects beginning to use Aiken. So this kind of seems like the trend. We have MinSwap, who has now put out a proposal to build their stable swaps, which allows for people to swap between stable coins, and they want to build that using Aiken. We have LendFi, which is a lending and borrowing protocol, which is also vowed to use Aiken for their V2 development. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot of projects stepping away from developing things at the very core and using some of these libraries to, I don't want to say shortcut, but to speed up their development. And what I guess are your thoughts surrounding the adoption of some of these abstraction platforms?
Well, for the 2 years that I've been part of the Indigo team, something that I've always heard the dev team talk about is more tooling. Right, more tooling is something that's been the topic of many meetings that I've been involved with, and from what I understand, it Aiken could be maybe shoved into that category just because it's a tool in itself, because it may add a level of efficiency. And again, I want to be clear here. I may not fully understand what Aiken is. I think the workshop's actually happening on it right now, but I'm learning. Right, the dev team, of course, knows a lot more than me. But from what I do know, I think it is certainly going to be a very useful tool in our toolbox for helping build what we want to have available in V2. And from what I've heard from some of the other teams, it's a similar explanation or description.
Got it. Now, with respect to testing, you said that you guys are still in the very early stages. Things are somewhat implemented. Are you guys going to have another testnet release where the community can kind of jump in there? I know you guys had a testnet for the release of V1 of the protocol. I think that was in late October, November-ish of 2022. So are you guys planning on doing the same thing?
Now, we haven't yet had that conversation, but I would anticipate a testnet would be appropriate, right, for V2, and especially also for Aiken as well, just because a testnet also, in my opinion, from the marketing perspective, helps generate a little bit more excitement, and it also helps lead to a smoother release, right? Because something that's unfortunately somewhat common in this industry is launches happening, and there's always bugs, right? There's always going to be bugs, and people realistically should expect that. But testnets help mitigate a lot of those bugs. So overall, I just think it leads to a much smoother product delivery, if you will.
I completely agree with that point. And to even add to that, I think it also helps the community get ready for what is to come. That way, whenever it does hit mainnet, it's not their first time interacting with those new smart contracts or any new functionality that might be introduced. Now let's go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, something that we really try to emphasize in Indigo Labs, when communicating things to the community is expectation management, right? So, I wouldn't say we tend to under-promise, over-deliver, but we certainly try to lean a little bit more that way than the opposite way, and I think that's paid dividends for the reputation of the Labs team. So
yeah, you guys have definitely taken your time, and you guys have delivered, and I think the sentiment surrounding your project is unmatched when compared to other protocols on Cardano. You guys seem to have one of the strongest and one of the most loyal communities really representing the Indigo protocol. But let's keep things moving along, Dan. I know that you've got other things to do here. And that is completely okay. I know you were taking a dip earlier at the pool, enjoying some of the sun here at the Gaylord Rockies, which I wish I had the time to do. Maybe next year I'll turn off the cameras and go ahead and do that. But you guys had a pretty big announcement surrounding the release of the web app V2. And so can you maybe explain what is the difference between the protocol V2 and the web app V2, and what the feeling and sentiment and feedback has been surrounding the web app V2 release?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Web App V2 is an actual UI enhancement. So it added features in the sense of information that people are able to view about their positions, such as the My Positions or portfolio page, which is also the rewards page now. So that gives people the power to look at how their rewards are split between whether it is IBTC or possibly it's Indy staking or iETH and so on. So people are able to actually see what streams of ADA and or Indy are coming from what parts of the protocol. And then also gave people just more tooltips and a much in my opinion prettier aesthetic. It's a lot more fun to interact with something that looks pretty, that's the truth of it. And the response was really, really good. The overwhelming majority of users have always used a dark mode, of course, right? I think that's pretty popular in this community, is like dark mode on everything. So dark mode received a little bit of like an enhancement in terms of just its vibrance. So it was a little bit more towards that indigo purple type feel. Whereas Web App V1 was more of I'd say a commercial type feel. That might not be the right word. More professional. It was just a clean kind of slate color. Excuse me. But about a week afterwards, I believe, it was within a week, we received a lot of response from the community, just a few members that are like, I really miss some of the professionalism and just like clean slated look of V1. So, we reached out to our web design guy, and we were like, hey man, how long do you think it would really take for us to just spin up another version that had a little bit more of those colors from V1? And he was like, I think we could have it out by tomorrow morning. So that's what we did, and it was really well received. So now there's actually 3 different UIs to use Indigo. There's the light, the dark, and then the midnight mode, which is more similar to V1. So to clarify the difference between Web App V2 and the protocol V2, so the protocol is the actual smart contracts, right? So features in the protocol V2 are going to be entirely different than just different ways to view the information that's already present in the V1 smart contracts, right? So V2, right, we were just talking about earlier, we're currently building with Aiken, right? So it's not like it's around the corner about to be released or anything like that, whereas V2 of the web app already was. So yeah, it's just important to distinguish almost every time, because people do get confused, and I understand that. That web app V2 was an enhancement of the UI, and that the protocol V2 is just an overall increase in the feature of the smart contracts, the number of smart contracts, some of the enhancements to the protocol, whether that be efficiencies or different ways of managing the liquidity within the protocol. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you for that clear and concise breakdown. I'm always excited to hear when protocols really listen to their communities, and I think that's why your community is so strong. And to that point, I want to jump into community participation with respect to your DAO, right? You guys have, I think, one of the most strong DAO communities. Anytime that you guys have votes, the community really shows up, and you guys literally put everything to governance. You guys have, I think, built one of the most robust governance platforms, and I remember vividly testing it when the platform was getting ready to launch, and I was like, man, these guys are really onto something. And so you guys are, I believe, past 30 or so proposals where the community has really weighed in and had their voices heard. And to hear that you guys did the same exact thing with this midnight user interface update, right, is just another testament to that you guys are really letting the community drive the direction of Indigo. Now, you guys have also seen a ton of growth in the past couple of months. I remember when you guys initially launched, you guys only had support, I believe it was for IUSD and IBTC, and then you guys in the early portion of 2023 actually had a proposal, and I remember this one, to add iETH. And so again, really kind of showing the testament to the DAO. But all of that aside, right, we're now seeing Indigo, I believe it is the top 2, or it's the second most used protocol in terms of TVL, right, on Cardano, right behind MinSwap, which is a DEX. But you guys are number 1 in your category. And so over the past year or so that the protocol has been live, you guys have distributed over 1.7 million ADA to stakers on the platform. And you've also distributed, I believe, around 20 million ADA just to Indigo users in general. So how does that feel, to really see that what you're doing is working? And I guess what is next for Indigo?
Well, I'd say in terms of how it feels, sometimes it's hard to feel the significance of what Indigo has kind of become when you're just working from home, typing away on your keyboard all day, right? But when you come out to these events and you get to shake the hands of everybody that I saw, last year at Rare Bloom and the year before at the 2021 Wyoming Summit. It's awesome because back then we were talking about Indigo like it was an idea, right? And now it's an actual product that's available out there for people to interact with. And I guess for me at least, I really realized the significance of kind of what Indigo Protocol has become and the Indigo DAO has become just from talking to people here that have used it or participated in the DAO or are active in the Discord that I've gotten to meet in person. And that's where, it really hits home, right? And I think that's pretty common for most people that are involved in projects that are spread out across the world. A lot of times you don't really get to feel the importance of it until you actually get to shake somebody's hand that, may have used the protocol, right?
Yeah, great feeling, and I can relate to that as a content creator where all I do is do stuff on the internet, and then I show up to events and people recognize the content, or, they are supporters of the content. So to shake their hands, really talk to them face to face, I'm like, wow, what I'm doing at home by myself really has an impact, and people are supportive of that, so I can definitely relate to that. Now we're going to go ahead and just kind of wind things down, right? We're talking about the community, and Indigo has actually given back to the community with some proposals that were executed, right, as a part of, I believe, funding round number 7.
And 7 or 8.
Perfect. And so we're just starting to see the release of those. Now, one of them specifically has really gathered a lot of attraction, and that's going to be Dexster. Do you mind talking about what Dexster is, what we can do with Dexster, and what the community has done with Dexster?
Yeah, so Dexster was kind of the brainchild of Cody Butts and Zach Slutter on our team, Zach being the UI designer and Cody being the CTO. So back during Catalyst Fund 7 or 8, again, I don't exactly know which one it was, but way back then, we submitted the proposal and it received funding. Indigo had a decent track record with funded proposals in Catalyst, so the community came through for us again and supported that proposal. But yeah, so we actually released that a couple of months ago, and essentially what it is, it's an open source SDK for a DEX aggregator. So in case you don't know, a DEX aggregator is a tool that accesses the prices on all of or a number of the DEXs that are on Cardano, and you can interact in a central place and be able to trade on all of those DEXs, and you can see the difference in price on each DEX for whether it be iAssets or Indy or any other Cardano native token. So we open source that, and it's awesome because we've seen a lot of traction in the community, as you mentioned, not just in people using the DEX aggregator on Indigo, but actually using the code of Dexter to build their own tools and pages. And somebody on Twitter, his name is Dave. I don't remember what his username is, but he's been having a blast with it and making a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Dave Beaumont.
Yep.
He's a developer, and like you said, I haven't met him in person, but I've clearly seen his contributions with respect to Dexter and DEX aggregation for Cardano, right? And I think that's what this is really all about. You guys building the tools and then letting the community find out the best way to utilize those tools, right? And I think Dave has been a clear example of that, not necessarily working with you guys on Dexter, but using what you guys have built to then provide more benefit to the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what being open source is all about. That's absolutely what it's all about is putting the tools out there for people to use to make even better products and services.
And on this closing note, I believe Indigo source code has also been open source. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, it has.
Perfect. Anything else that you want to add here for the audience, Dan, before we go ahead and wind this out?
Well, I'd say the only thing is Rare Evo has been great. If you haven't been to either Rare Bloom or Rare Evo, or I know the summit's all the way out there in Dubai this year, so we'll see how many people make it out there that we've seen here. But these events are always a blast. If you're somebody that's in the Cardano community and you want to get out there and actually talk to the people that you might interact with or follow on Twitter or members of their Discord, it really is a great time. And Rand and Wes and the guys, they always do a fantastic time running the show. And yeah, those are my fellow Ohio guys. They're all from Cincinnati. I'm from Dayton, Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah. But those guys are great. So if you've never been out to one of these events, definitely try to make it out, both to support them, support the Cardano community, some of the other communities that have actually come in this year, and also be able to meet some of the teams that are building on Cardano. It's been a great time. It's definitely worth it.
You could not have said that any better. I'm not going to go ahead and add anything else. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Dan here representing Indigo Labs as the head marketer. If you guys are not already following them on Twitter, go ahead and make sure to do so. If you guys have not gone ahead and joined their Discord, go ahead and join DeFi Dan in there. If you guys have any questions surrounding what Indigo Labs is building, go ahead and make sure to drop that down in the comments section below. If you guys appreciated content like this, make sure to go ahead and hit that like and go ahead and subscribe. And on that note, Dan, thank you so much. I look forward to working with you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. Thanks very much.